Hello, my name is Scott Buckelew, past National President 2021-2022. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about Chapter President training, functionality that hopefully you'll have accepted this position and you're excited about what's coming, and thank you for being willing to serve. So let's get started. As the Chapter President, you're the elected officer of the chapter, tasked at overseeing chapter business and ensuring that decisions, orders, resolutions are carried out in accordance with chapter bylaws. So that leaves you with a lot of responsibility. You have to do your planning of your chapter activities, hold your regular chapter meetings, and the board meetings that should be held at least once a quarter, overseeing the committees and projects during your term of office. The chapter president should also welcome all new members and be the official representative of the chapter national, region, district board meetings. Here's a brief little layout of what our national leadership is that comes sort of down to the chapters. So we are ran by a national board of directors, and that consists of your national president, the national president-elect, the immediate past national president. Those three consist of what we call the executive board of directors for National AMBUCS. In addition to the executive board, it also consists of each region directors, which we currently have 7 region directors throughout the country that represent all the states that we have. There's also the National Big Hat Club president is a voting member of the National Board of Directors. The National Big Hat Club vice president is an invited guest to the board of directors, so they will be participatory in all of the board meetings and informed in all the activities that are going on there. Ex-official members is the AR staff, at a minimum the CEO, and then we'll bring in the other staff members as appropriate based on the current board discussions going on. When we step down to the region level, as I mentioned, there's 7 different regions, and each region has an elected region director. They will serve for 2 years, and they are part of the national board, as we said above. In addition to your region, they might have a region secretary treasurer who will be responsible for keeping minutes during your meetings and also doing all of your billings. There should also be a region Big Hat Club director. Their primary responsibility will be a big hat auction at your region conferences, if you were to have those also. You might have district governors throughout your region. The district governor is responsible for a subset of chapters in each area, naturally labeled districts, and those typically contain between 2 and 5 chapters that are relatively close proximity from a travel distance. That is no longer a required participatory grouping of our chapters, so not all chapters are a member of districts. If you do have a district governor, there's likely going to be a district secretary treasurer who they will also take responsibility for those billings. And then we have what is probably you, are your chapter presidents. So every chapter should have their own president. That president should be voted on each year, and it might be the same one year after year, or you might change every single year. Every chapter does operate a little bit differently. When you talk about our chapter leadership, so your chapter has their own board of directors, and every chapter does operate a little bit differently. So these are just sort of the default positions that a chapter might typically have. Naturally, a chapter president. The second one would be your chapter vice president, also sometimes called president-elect. Sometimes they have a first vice president, second vice president. Those positions, whatever you call it, president-elect, vice president, or whatever, are in a ideal world, those are your future leaders. Now, some organizations, that is next year's leaders. Sometimes that's 2 years down the road, the leaders. Sometimes some chapters actually will just have those as a second person in charge because maybe they don't have the desire to maintain the title of chapter president. But remember, your vice president, your president-elect, whatever you call it, typically those are going to be the people that will step up in the chapter president's absence. So if it's to run a meeting, if it's to host an activity, a fundraiser, or whatever, to talk about your chapter's representation within your community or wherever it might be, that would be the person that would come on. There's also going to be your immediate past chapter president. There again, sometimes that person will also serve as your chairman of the board. Sometimes the chapters will have the chapter president manage the board meetings. But that would be an opportunity for that. We still always recommend that you do lean on your immediate past chapter presidents. They've been there, done that type of thing, and they're always a good source of information. You should also have a chapter secretary. There again, all your board meetings, they should be the ones taking minutes, notes. Those minutes or notes are legal documents, basically. That's what is setting your standards on how your chapter should execute. It could be just a matter of voting on new members to come in, voting on members to be departed, or just approving fundraising activities, things like that. Every chapter, the board of directors should be the ones making those approvals on what fundraising activities you're going to do. Basically, where is your chapter name going to be represented? That should be done at the board meeting and recorded within your chapter minutes. Also, if you plan on changing bank accounts or whatever like that, you will need to have that notated in your minutes when the board approved the signature being changed on your on a checkbook, on your bank accounts. So there again, first of the year, that's typically a very good process to make. Change your signatures. Always include the treasurer, naturally. Typically, you're going to include either the secretary and or the president. Make that motion, record it in your minutes, and then provide your minutes to your bank. And then you can change the signatures on the bank account as appropriate. Speaking of bank accounts, we have chapter treasurer. They're going to be the ones responsible for the money, or I should say responsible for depositing and disbursements of the money. The responsibility of the money is laid on the entire board of directors. So that treasurer should provide a treasurer's report to your board, every board meeting that you have. And also they should provide a copy of the bank statement as part of that treasurer's report. That way you can tie your treasurer's report to the money that's in the bank account. That gives the ability for the board to serve as an oversight of your financial position. And again, it's not there to say to not trust your treasurer. It's there to help your treasurer ensure confidence from the board that they are doing everything correctly. So please always make sure that that treasurer's report and bank account gets presented at your board meeting, and then that report would be accepted by the board. You don't actually approve the treasurer's report, you accept the treasurer's report during your board of directors. Committee chairs. So we do highly recommend that you do organize your chapter into committees. And then each committee naturally needs a chair, so they would be a responsible party for that chair, for that committee. Your committees could be serving numerous purposes. You might have a membership and reception committee. You might have a program committee. If you have a specific fundraiser, that fundraiser might have a committee. And that might be, each of those committees might have one or multiple chairs or co-chairs as part of that. And then naturally you would have your membership involved in those committees. We'll talk more about the committees shortly. Every chapter should also have a big hat president. They're the ones that are responsible, or the authority over the big hat chapter. As we all know, every chapter likely has a big hat chapter contained within a club within a club. The big hat are the big hat members are the ones that have brought in 3 members within a 12 calendar month window of time, and then they become recognized as a big hat. We do highly encourage that your big hat chapter comes and brings auction items to your region conferences and national conference big hat celebration, big hat business meeting, big hat auction, whatever label you want to put on that they bring an auction item. And even better, it'd be great if your big hat chapter would also support those auctions by allocating a set amount of funds to come to those auctions and purchase items, either to be resold, re-auctioned off at your big hat meetings, your local meetings, or just to support the big hat program. Remember, the Big Hat program is one of our largest supporters of our program giving, which contains for scholarships and ability, and our cornerstone, which is our support for new chapter building, new chapter growth. That's where all of that money goes, and we highly recommend that your local Big Hat club participates in all of those. There again, these are just sort of our recommended chapter leadership. It could be different based on your local bylaws. So let's continue down through some of the other activities and information that you might be able to obtain through the hub or through other information. So as you're probably aware, we do have a membership hub, and that's available through the Amtrak website. You can hop over there. There's a link at the top. You go there and you log in. Every single AMBUC member has the ability to log into the hub, and we highly encourage all members to log in, but especially your chapter leadership, your secretary, your treasurer, your president. That's where you can find numerous links to different type of help documents, documentation, forms to fill out. All of that we are now maintaining on the hub, which is basically our private internet for AMBUCS. So it's no longer part of the public window. It's part of our hub, which gives you access to all these. So let's go through and look at a couple. So we have our National Leadership Planning Calendar. So I'm going to hop over. I've already logged in. So from the AMBUCS website, there's a link at the top that takes you, you'll sign in, and then this is basically your home page. So when you're looking for this information that we'll be talking about today, you'll hop over to a tab called Resources. And then from the resources, there's numerous different tabs. So chapter education, Amtrak training, national programs, officer education, and forms. So I'm going to first start with the officer education. So when we hop down to officer education, we can sort of scroll down here, and right currently we have our 2022-2023 leadership calendar. As we get to the end of this, in the beginning of the 2023-2024 calendar, you'll see a new link out here for a new document. But we click on that. We go to another page, and then this is where we can download the document. So if you just hover over it, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, it's a PDF file. I can click on it. I can open my PDF document. Once my PDF document opens up, we can quickly see in here that there's numerous pieces of information within this one document. It does go month by month, and this is sort of a global leadership guide. So as you'll see at the top here, what the district governor is recommended to do, what the chapter president's recommended to do, chapter secretary treasurer, and then some optional activities that depend on your chapter. You might or might not fall into some of these categories. So June 1, that's our change of our AMBUC year. So, I'm going to skip the district governor. We'll just talk chapter presidents. They assume office on June 1. You should ask for the written treasurer's report from the previous board meeting if they were not already involved in that. Call your June board meeting. I would recommend that you go ahead and set a board meeting schedule for the entire year that you'll be serving. That way there's no confusion about, hopefully people can schedule their personal calendars to be appropriate to be able to attend the board meetings, because you do want your local chapter leadership there to participate with you. One of the first items there, again, that's going to be presented either by your secretary or treasurer, but it's an item that you should really be focusing on, is that you should have a budget presented and approved by at least the June board meeting. Sometimes you'll do this actually before you roll into the new year, but that budget is basically you authorizing the treasurer to write checks. If you do not approve a budget prior, the treasurer technically does not have the authorization to pay any of your chapter bills. That is never a good thing. You should be part of your treasurer's report when you're reviewing that is seeing where you're coming up with budgets, because from a legal standpoint, the treasurer should not be writing any checks that exceeds the budget for the category in which they're writing the check for. If it exceeds the budget, the annual budget, they should be coming back to the board requesting approval to increase the budget or to pay a specific bill. And that's part of that's the governance of your local chapter. There, you can make sure your chapter dues and Amtrak invoices are always paid to the national office. That's what keeps you in good standing. That's also what keeps our organization running. So there's always a list of optional things, your budget requests, your first board meeting. Make sure you announce your committees. And if you haven't already assigned committees or offered to allow your members to sign up for specific committees, that should all be done either before the year or at the very beginning of your year. Get those pieces organized. Make sure you set your goals that you want those committees to aim for, so that everybody's on the same page. The Therapist of the Year award actually would have been submitted at the end of the previous year. And then visibility. Again, we must always try to focus on keeping the chapter visible in the community. That could be from simple fundraisers or just going out and picking up trash, or a variety of numerous different ways that you can keep your name in your community's mind. And then at the below, you'll see numerous different calendar dates and things like that. This is repeated for each month. I'm not going to go through every month. I do recommend that you print this out at the beginning of the year, look through all the months, put in your dates that you would like to see different things, maybe a window of time for your socials, write down whatever your local region your region conferences in the spring, write down national conferences, start trying to get your calendar in line for your entire year at the very beginning or before the year starts. So let's hop back over and see what other documents we're looking at here. So another one is, a great one is the Chapter Activity Planning Guide. So we're going to hop back over to the hub again. We're going to go back to our resources and back one more. And I'm going to actually go to the chapter, very top of your officer education, Chapter Strategic Planning Guide, same concept. We click on that, we get a link there, we click on that link, and then it opens up what is identified as our Strategic Planning Information Guide. Give it just a second to open. So here's just gives you some ideas that you might look for on how you might want to try to consider running your chapter. This is not trying to say this is the only way, this is what you must do, you must implement all this. This is designed just to give you some ideas to go through, talking about, don't forget your community involvement, your members, your facilitators. There again, just a very nice guide that you should probably walk through. Some of this will be appropriate for your chapter, some of it will not be appropriate with it. Some of it's more detailed than you want to get, that's fine. We're by no means saying this is what you must do. We're just trying to give you as much information so you can be successful during your year as possible. So we're going to hop back over to our slideshow here again. The other item is our chapter toolkit. So I'm going to hop back and we're going to go back a couple of tabs on here. And we're going to go back to our chapter education. And we'll see that we have chapter toolkit. So what is the chapter toolkit? So here, there are different links down here where I can actually download the document. This is actually going to be the same link to the document. We'll hop over there. Links to the page. And this is just a web page out there. Gives you a lot of information. What's the overview of chapters, requirements, program giving? What is program giving? We talked about that. What is the purpose of it? Why do we have it? What's the goals that we're looking to achieve by doing it? What are some possible membership development programs that you might want to consider? AMBUCS University, your officer guidelines. You know, maybe you want to step up past just your local presidency and step into a district governor, a region director, national president-elect roles. These are telling you the processes it takes to get there. That's all done from this chapter toolkit. Good source just to always remember that's available out there to hop over to. Talking about committees real quick, we talked about assigning committees. So there is another document. I'm going to hop back over to our toolkit here under our chapter education. Let me find it. Committees. Oh, I just went past it evidently somewhere. Budget. Well, let's go to the toolkit then. I know it's there, so we're going to hop there, go to our links. And evidently I was wrong on that. It is not here. Hunting and pecking a little bit. Sorry about that. Let's try officer education. These two tabs are going to contain just about everything you want to look at. So here's chapter committee guidelines under officer education. There again, another link to a guide. You can pull this up. And it's just a PDF document, numerous different pages. And this has a list of recommended committees that you might consider having for your chapter. You are not expected to have all these by any means. You might only have 2 or 3 of them. You might have a half a dozen. You might even have a few more than that. But these are committees that we recommend that you should consider and see which ones fit your chapter structure the best, and then create them. It is highly recommended that you do try to get as many of your chapter members on a committee as possible. One way to keep membership is to have people doing something. No one likes to be a member of an organization in which they do nothing or they just show up and eat lunch. They can do that for free. They can do that with other groups. They can just go out to restaurants, things like that. People join AMBUCS because they want to be involved in their community. So you should try to get them on committees. Try not to have, the small group, maybe half a dozen people that serve on all the committees and no one else gets to serve or gets to have input. Spread people out. Get members assigned to committees. If you're a small chapter, 10, 12 members, you probably only want to have 2 or 3 committees. If you're a large chapter, 50, 100, 150 members, you can probably have more committees and do even more than what we identified in the community, in the chapter, in the committee preference guide. So But record the other aspect when you're doing the activities or the committees that are doing it. You have the ability to make any member an administrator within the hub, and any administrator in the hub can record chapter activities. So we'll hop back over to the hub real quick. And if we go back and under your chapter, so I have to go up. That's fine. We'll just go to admin. I'm just going to skip this. We'll go to my home, which will give me a quick link to my admin chapter. And then from my admin chapter, I can go to activity. So here's my admin. And then from admin, I can do activity. And then from activity, I have the ability to go through the variety of different activities that we are requesting that your chapter actively tell the hub what you have done. This is very important, not just to your chapter. That's where we do our scoring. So that's where we sort of recognize the superior chapters when they are a well-rounded organization who are affecting their community in numerous different ways, with ramps, with Amtrakes, with having your board meetings, with having speakers at your meetings, all those different types of activities you can get scores on. And the more scores, naturally, the more activities you do, the higher your score. And to get over 750 points, we consider that a superior chapter. They are doing what it takes in their communities to make a difference. And that's what we're always trying to encourage, is making a difference in your community. Our goals is, providing mobility and independence. And if you're doing that in your community, that's even better. But always being involved in your community is the goal. So this page should open up in just another moment or so. And this is where you would be able to record, as assuming that you're an administrator of your local chapter. You can go through there and sort of record whatever you have done, and then that's where we will score the points. Well, I'm not going to wait any longer. We're going to hop back over to our document, and let's just see go on to the next point. So at your board meetings, there again, we talked about your board meetings need to be a minimum of once a quarter. We do recommend that you do them once a month. And then it should be stated in your bylaws how often you have it. And just while we talk about chapter bylaws, let me just hop back over here real quick. And I'm going to hop back over to my resources. And under chapter education, we have chapter bylaws. This is a copy of our standard bylaws. That might not be appropriate for what you're doing or your chapter. You might have altered your chapter bylaws. You might have either used a different standard from the beginning or made changes throughout the years, but every member of your board should have a copy of your local chapter bylaws. Check with your chapter secretary. They might keep a copy of them. If you cannot find a copy of your chapter bylaws within your local chapter, reach out to the ARC, the AMBUCS Resource Center, and they can likely produce with the last record of bylaws that was provided to them, and you can sort of use that as your starting point from that point forward. But remember, the bylaws are your standards that you should be conforming to make sure that everything's being managed appropriately within your individual chapter. Board of Directors runs the chapters. They have the authority to make most of the decisions. You must comply with the bylaws to be decided, and look at to when you're complying with the bylaws regarding matters that must be decided by the full membership. Typically, the full membership has to have a vote whenever you decide to raise dues or change your meeting time or meeting location. Those are typically the two big things where the entire membership must make a decision. If the board makes any decisions on committee proposals, they can accept, amend, or make recommendations back to the committee. So there again, your board of directors is your decision-making body. When you have meetings, lead conversations, invite speakers, spark interest to align your AMBUCS mission. Sometimes that mission might be, like I said, either our inspiring mobility, or it could be just local community service. So that might be a local authority within your chapter, within your community that might or might not be our mission base, but being involved in the community is part of our mission. So anything like that, pick up on that. During a chapter meeting, there should not be any resolutions or motions made at the chapter meeting, unless if that was originally called upon to make a decision. That would have to be basically called by the president or a member of the board of directors, in which you need the full chapter's vote on something. Typically, like I made a comment a few minutes ago, it's going to be a change in dues, a change in meeting time or meeting place, and then naturally your election of officers. Past that, all business should be handled by the board of directors. Now, you get new members. That's a great thing. So when you get a new member, what should you do? Well, once they are approved by the board, you should swear them in as soon as possible to bring them into and part of your local chapter. We do recommend that you do keep a spare several individual membership pins on hand at your board meetings, so as soon as they do get passed, you can immediately give them their pin. When you submit all the paperwork through the national office will also turn around and send a thank you letter and a replacement pin, basically, or a new pin, depending on what you've done, back to the chapter president. If you keep a stock of them and you presented them with one of your pins from stock, that pin that comes back with the new member welcome kit, just put that back in your stock to give it away to the next new member on that. So where do you install them at? So under chapter education, actually, I'm sorry, it's actually under officer education. Almost all the way to the bottom, you see installation of chapter officers. There again, another guide. And if you go towards the bottom of that, there's where your president. So that's going to be your once a year chapter presentation, short installation. So this is where you can also do a short version of it. I'm sorry, that's all about officers. I thought our member was in there also. So I'm going to actually hop over to our, where are we? Chapter President's Guide. If we look at our President's Guide, we will see in there a whole bunch of information there. Again, you should be going through and reviewing all this prior to taking over office. And we will have, here's some other links to chapter bylaws, national bylaws, the calendar. A lot of the things that we're talking about during this session is also links in this guide. So if you're looking at it online, you can definitely do it from here. And a little bit of our governance. And I guess I led us astray again. We will find where that membership installation is before we go too far, because we definitely always want to be able to install our new members as soon as we can. So let's hop back over to our chapter section just real quick. I thought I had this better under control. I apologize for that. So let's look at our new chapter. I don't think this is going to be it either. Well, I apologize. You'll probably have to reach back out to myself or someone at the ARC to find that installation. This will be the last place I look on here. Yeah, okay, I apologize. I evidently have lost track of where that is, so we will not go any deeper into looking for that. Chapter 2, make sure that people attend. There again, you should always encourage retention. So if you have a member who's not showing up for your meetings or has not shown up for regular meetings, that's what your membership and attendance reception committee would be very good at, to keep those people involved. Reach out to them, help with that. Region, district, national interfaces. So chapters can request visits from national office directly. Typically, chapter underwrites the travel expenses for invited national officers. You'll also see that periodically a national or regional or even a district officer might reach out to you and want to come to one of your meetings or one of your activities. You should always involve them whenever you can. Whenever you're doing any type of special activities, fundraising, installation dinners, special dinners like that, we would love for you to reach out and invite your district governor if you have one, region directors, your national president or national officers that might be in your region or not even in your region. You'll be surprised how many of our national officers would travel quite substantially just to come support your chapter. If a national officer or regional officer reaches out to you, calls you, and just to talk or wants to come by and have lunch or whatever, just to see what you're doing, we're doing that to encourage and to thank you for what you're doing as the chapter president. How can we help you? None of it's a bad thing. We're not trying to come in and review or criticize what you're doing. We're just wanting to be there for you to help you make your chapter better. You should have at least quarterly district, if you have districts, or region exec committees. The chapter presidents are members of both of those committees. If you do, if those are announced, we highly encourage that the chapter president or their appointee go to those events. That's where we discuss our AMBUC goals, different programs. You can ask questions and cast votes if necessary for any of those activities. You should also be receiving at least one monthly AMBUC newsletter. They are posted on the hub. You should see an AMBUC newsletter from the national office, and you should see one from the region director. Each month, both of those, you should get an email from both of those. If you're not getting those letters, please either check the hub to make sure that we have your correct email address, or reach out to your region director or national president or the AMBUCS Resource Center to say, I'm not getting these emails. Can you help explain why I might or might not be doing it? Because we want to keep you informed, and currently that is our most successful way of keeping people informed. Leadership development. So one of your primary jobs during your year as chapter president is to find your replacement. So that's typically you will elect a chapter vice president or president-elect, and during your term is help keep those people educated to what you are doing, so when they take over as president, they are ready. They're already going to hit the ground running. They've seen it done. They've seen you do it right. They've also seen what you might have, not done quite right. And that way it gives them the opportunity to improve on that and continue to enhance what your local chapter is doing. Every region holds regional conferences somewhere between March 15th and May 15th. Please always put that on. Anybody who's looking to become an officer, put it on their calendar as soon as possible, and make a point to attend. We do recommend that your local chapter also find ways to assist your leadership in attending those regional conferences. That is the best place for them to sort of see what is happening from an AMBUC perspective as a whole, help provide them with additional information, contacts, things like that. And even if you've had the same president, the same secretary, the same treasurer for 10, 20, 30 years, we still encourage that they attend these every single year, because it's very common that we have made changes to the processes within the year. So please find ways to make sure that they're able to attend. If your chapter is able to either create types of funds or funding available to help not only your leadership, but also any members. They might be considering future leadership. If they're interested in attending, that's a great place for people to come see and learn about AMBUCS. National conference. So every year we have a national conference. We elect the next national president-elect. There are usually a few other opportunities that we are directing what we want AMBUCS to be doing in the future. And it's a great place to get excited about what AMBUCS has done, not only at your local chapter, but throughout the country. So always promote that your chapter president attend. That's also where your chapter president will receive any awards for the previous AMBUC year that your chapter might have earned. It could be just by giving away or purchasing Amtraks. You might have received an AMBUC of the Year, project manager. That is a place where all of those recognitions are provided. So do everything you can there again to encourage participation at the national conference level. This is just sort of a recap on several of the funds that I've showed you. I guess I did not go into the awards guidelines or the parliamentarian procedures. That information is all found on the membership hub in either the chapter officers area or in the guide. So let me just hop back over there since I just mentioned it. Chapter education or officer education. All the documents that we just talked about are in there. Great resource for you to find it. And there again, we are there to help you. And if you have any questions, you need anything, reach out to the AMBUCS Resource Center, reach out to your region director, your district governor if you have one, or any of the past national presidents that are out in the AMBUC world. All of us are always glad to assist and provide any additional guidance. Just somebody to listen. Been there, done that. There again, what can we help you do be successful and make your chapter successful? Please reach out. And a final thought, thank you for stepping up to be a leader in your chapter, and we hope to see you throughout the conferences and the conventions throughout AMBUCS. Thank you.